G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode. With that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and let's get right into it. Am I the asshole for refusing to house my niece after she purposely missed her flight? I, 25 male, and my partner Lana, 28 female, moved out of my home country 5 years ago due to my partner getting a job offer that she was passionate about, so I quit my job and moved. I have since also found a good job. My house is a 14+ hour flight away from the rest of my family, but since me and my partner have a good paying jobs, we're able to fly home for important holidays or events. We usually stay at my dad's or her parents' house. 2 years ago, my niece Lexi, 19 female, decided to study in a university in my city. So I offered to house her so my half-brother, her father, 36 male, wouldn't have to pay extra expenses on top of her tuition or stress over her living with strangers. The courses she was taking finished a few weeks ago, and she was meant to leave a few days ago. We decided to extend her stay so she could say goodbye to her friends, do a bit of partying, and enjoy the country without the stress of school. Lexi now claims she has fallen in love with the country and doesn't want to leave. The thing is, me and my partner are tired of her. We want her to leave. She's a lovely kid, but it's been 2 years of dealing with her, and we want some peace and quiet. So we told her that we were sorry, but we couldn't house her anymore. She didn't take this well, and offered to pay us for rent or split the bills, but, money was never the issue. She calmed down eventually, and the morning of her flight, she got everything ready, and I drove her to the airport to say goodbye. I didn't stay there since I had other things to attend to, work and cleaning the guest room. Lexi purposely missed her flight and called me hours later so that I would pick her up from the airport, explaining how we had no other option than to let her stay. I could tell from her smugness that she missed her flight on purpose, so I asked her, and she got defensive and started rambling about how it was my own fault that she was forced to do this and that I should have just let her stay. I told her to F off and I left her stranded. My half-brother is now blowing up my phone, the rest of my family is too, and begging me to take her in for a few more weeks and asking me to fly back with her to make sure she doesn't pull the same thing a second time. I told them that I've already done more than enough and that Lexi is 19 now and she should be acting like a responsible girl and taking care of herself. Lexi's been staying at a hotel for the last few days, but her funds are slowly draining and she doesn't have nearly enough to house and feed herself for much longer. Lana and I don't know what to do. My family is begging us to help. I had to turn off my personal phone because I couldn't deal with them. Am I the asshole? After all, she is just a child. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I flat out refused to help her any further after learning that she missed her flight on purpose, even though Lexi is a 19-year-old kid thousands of miles away from her home. And now in the comments, not the asshole. If she were truly willing to pay rent, she would have been willing to find a place of her own in the area. My guess is she never intended to pay and thought she could force you to keep up the status quo. Very gross behavior on her part, given your generosity. And OP replies, my guess is that she knows that I could never charge her more than she can afford, and anything I charge her would be a great deal considering my apartment is in a great neighborhood, close to everything and spacious. Foreigners can have a really hard time renting in this country, so finding an apartment would be really hard, especially on a limited salary. She would also need to find a job and all of that. Thank you for commenting. I left home at 14 and I stayed with my uncle on weekends when my boarding house was closed. But even then I had the basic common sense to not overstay my welcome. Your niece is entitled, and being a child doesn't give her the right to act like a spoiled little brat when she doesn't get her way. Shame on her parents for allowing this behavior. Don't cave to them. She needs to learn this serious life lesson one way or another. If your family wants to help so much, then they can go help her. Ridiculous. Not the asshole. If this is so extremely out of character for her, are you sure something else isn't going on? Does she have a boyfriend staying in her hotel or encouraging her not to go? Have you spoken to any of her friends? I have to ask now, but are abortion laws different in each country? Would your brother be upset if she was pregnant? I know the world shutting down has been a factor, but has she been home since coming to live with you? How often did she talk to her family? If this turn is truly that sudden, it raises alarm bells. Maybe she's just a stubborn teenager not thinking this through, but I would want to be sure there's not more to the story. And OP replies, she hasn't shared any thoughts like that at all, so I'm not sure about what her reasoning is. Family-wise, my dad's side of the family would be okay with pretty much anything. They would support her if she's pregnant, gay, trans, or anything really. Her dad is a great guy. Her siblings are annoying but not malicious or hateful in any way, and her home life is good. She talks with them over text pretty regularly, and we video call once every week/2 weeks at least. We've gone back home a few times. Less than normal because of the whole situation, but we went back for Christmas and a few other holidays, and everything was normal. She seemed to enjoy it and has even expressed being homesick every once in a while if we hadn't gone back in a while. Lana and I didn't want to violate her privacy, and honestly, we really didn't care. So we never asked her about anything relationship related. I know she has a few good friends that she talks about a lot, and I've seen them, but that's about it. Hopefully this answers your question, as it is the best that I can offer. Thank you for commenting. And now, on to the update. Hello. Thank you to everyone who was kind enough to read and follow our story, left comments, and is reading this right now. The support has been overwhelming. I tried reading as many comments as I could, and answer as many questions as I saw, but I figured that I should also do an update/FAQ post. The Am I the Arsehole subreddit has a character limit, so that's why I'm posting this on my profile instead. I'll start with the update. Lana and I tried our best to calm down and talk things out with my half-brother and only him. We decided to ignore any family that wasn't directly involved because they were just overwhelming all of us. We exchanged a few messages, then had a video call, and redacted a big message that we would send to Lexi expressing our concerns and the consequences her actions had. We thought that writing a singular, well-explained message would be better than bombarding her and blowing up her phone with ramblings. In that message, we explained the legal consequences her actions would have, how she made us all feel, her father's anxieties, me and Lana's feelings of betrayal, and everyone's worries for her safety and well-being. We clarified that we still loved her. Thanks again to whoever advised us to say this, and that rather than upset, we were worried sick about her, and wanted her safety above all else. We ended the message with an invitation for a video call scheduled a few minutes after we sent the message. Lana, her father, and I were sitting in the call for about 5 minutes before she appeared. The call was full of tears, screams, and questions coming from all directions. As much as we all tried to not look like this problem was eating us alive, I doubt any of us had been getting sleep or eating properly. My brother looked the most beaten out of us, and I'm sure Lexi could tell. One of the first things I tried to ask my niece, I was advised to do this a lot, was ask her why she wanted to stay. She finally revealed that she was scared about her family rejecting her for being a lesbian, and that she had figured that staying here with her girlfriend would beat having to go back in the closet. I can't lie, at that moment, I was slightly relieved. A lot of people were talking about their own speculations in the comments, and some were scary, like her being pregnant or some sort of weird boyfriend trying to trap her in the country, so this being it was a relief. I came out to her. She didn't know that I was bisexual because I tried to keep quiet, considering our resident country's culture, and told her how me, Lana, and her dad would never love her less for loving who she wants to love. I cried a lot, and so did she. I'm pretty sure I saw my brother try to push back tears too. It was very emotional and personal, so I apologize, but I don't feel comfortable sharing more than that. We all agreed that I would pick up my niece and bring her to the airport, and if she tried to play us again, this time she would be on her own for good. Me and her father split costs for the ticket, but she will be paying us back from her own money with the job she gets once she goes back home. I don't need the money, so my brother will be getting my half. I got to meet her girlfriend Lily. They have been dating for around a year and a half now, and from what I've seen, she's a nice girl, and I'm sure she and Lexi will be very happy. I received a confirmation call from my brother a while ago, and she's finally back home, safe and sound. We have arranged that she can come and visit us and Lily whenever, and is free to stay in our home again as long as she asks first. I know that a lot of you will not understand why I'm allowing her back into my home, or why I'm being so supportive after what she's done. Maybe some of you will get upset that I didn't blow up at or cut off my brother, but I ask you to understand that we are all human and we are all under tons of stress, which made us unable of thinking clearly and set our feelings aside to think rationally. I love my family, and they mean the world to me, even if they mess up. Lexi is a stupid teenager like most of us were. She will be facing consequences for her actions. We are not letting her off scot-free, so don't worry. And she was scared of having to repress her identity again. And my brother was worried about her daughters being stranded on a country thousands of miles away. None of us acted perfectly in that situation, but we all have apologized and forgiven each other. Thanks everyone for your comments, upvotes, awards, and support. Even if you just read the post, thank you for taking the time. I also want to answer some questions I got and expand on some things. The question was, why was your niece staying with you? Well, I wanted to be kind to my half-brother. I have been very lucky in life, and I was blessed with enough financial stability to be able to care for my niece, which took a huge toll off him. I have been given permission to share this, so don't worry. Some of you might have noticed that my brother was only 17 when Lexi was born. This meant that he had to get a job right away and work to support his family. Sadly, Lexi's mother passed away a long time ago, when Lexi was 6, from complications after the birth of her youngest brother. So my brother is an only parent to 3 children, the oldest being Lexi. He worked hard to make sure his children could get an education, so I decided to help out by offering free residence for my niece while she studied. Lana also helped sort out her visa. This has brought me and my father's other children, my half-siblings, closer, which also is a reason why I wanted to help. Another comment said, Lexi is the same age as you when you moved. She should have figured it out like you and Lana. I already clarified this in a comment, so I'll just paste it here. I had Lana's help. She was already well off, even without the job offer, and had many connections in the country. Part of her family is from our residence country, but she was born and raised entirely in our home country, only visiting during special occasions. Lana was able to find me a job, handled most of my legal paperwork, if not all, and rented our current residence in her name, because it's much harder to find an apartment while being a foreigner. If Lana and her family hadn't helped me, I probably would have never been able to move, so I am insanely grateful. I'm not trying to justify Lexi's actions, but I'm not going to pretend 20-year-old me figured everything out by myself. I had loads of help, and I couldn't be more grateful for my amazing partner. And now in the comments, yeah, that's a pretty understandable reaction to fear of persecution on your return. Depending on just where the family lives, that could be a very understandable reaction. Yup, I'm not counting this as a positive update in the slightest if she's being sent back somewhere where she's in danger. Man, first half I was team F off Lexi, but once she opened up about how scared she was to not be out and safe in her home country, that melted me. Wholesome update. Yeah, it seemed the only logical reason why she didn't leave. It also appears her girlfriend was kicked out too, so they both were holed up together. Dang, what a great person OP is to help figure out and fight for her. There's almost always an insecurity or fear behind bullcrap behavior. Doesn't always matter, but there is a reason most of the time. You just hope somebody mentions it before they burn all the bridges, like she almost did. Yup. If she'd come to him with her concerns, this probably would have been a good story all the way through. Our next post is titled, Why does "What's for dinner tonight" vex me so? It's just me and my husband, no children. Every day he asks me, what are you thinking for dinner tonight? Right around dinner time. He did just used to ask, what's for dinner? But I told him how that annoyed me, so he has a new variation of the same question. I've tried to address this with him, but he says he doesn't care if I say nothing. He can fend for himself. Also, most of the time he does fend for himself and doesn't ask me if he can make anything. If I ask him to make dinner, he will do it with no complaining. Same with dishes. I have to ask, but no complaining, and he doesn't put it off at least. We sometimes have set days of the week that he makes dinner, and he does it, but somehow we always fall out of rhythm and are back to this question. Why does this question bug me so much? Why am I the only one thinking about feeding us on a regular basis? Please share any insights and suggestions for new ways of framing this for him, and please don't just suggest I leave him. I'd like ways to educate him and myself more on this topic. Thank you. And now in the comments, because he's putting the responsibility on you. And I guess it's a mixture of maturity level, strategic incompetence, obliviousness, laziness, and codependency. My ex was the same. I was the one always saying or asking, can you help me cook? Can you help me clean? Can you help me do the dishes, laundry? Can you help me make the bed? If I didn't initiate it, nothing would be done. I hated it because it made me feel like a mother and manager, but I was also bad at communicating why I hated it. So in the end, both of us felt it didn't work out and ended it. I don't know. The best solution would be for your partner to understand why you don't like it. Literally tell him, when I always have to initiate X, Y, and Z, and when you never do it on your own accord, it makes me feel like I'm your mother, and it's so unattractive. You have to step up and be a grown-up. I don't want to feel like I'm mothering you, or whatever it is you are feeling. And men need to hear it in literal words. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't talk in metaphors. If you want this relationship to work out, just say exactly what you feel. Maybe he'll change and take it seriously, maybe not. And OP replies, I do feel like a mother/manager. When I've tried to address this with him, he says he asks because he doesn't want to step on my toes. Or basically, he doesn't want to just make dinner because what if I had something planned already in my head? Sometimes I do have something planned already in my head because I cook 98% of the time, so of course I have an idea in my head. But I've told him, no, please, step on my toes. If he went in the kitchen and just started making dinner, I would love it. I would eat gruel. Make me anything. And then I think that is when his argument starts to fall apart and become transparent. I have the same annoyance to the question, to be honest. It feels like it's placing all the responsibility on me, which isn't unrealistic because I do 98% of the food-related things, but it still bugs me to no end. I'd much prefer my partner say, have you thought about dinner yet? I think I'd like XYZ if you haven't. Honestly, I'm probably still going to be the one who cooks it, but it's the mental load that annoys me. I mean, I hope you do have a good breakdown of the physical labor of it as well. At least if you're doing all the cooking. He's doing more of the other things, but yeah, you're both adults. Why is the woman the one who's meant to plan dinner? Even if it's one of those situations where the woman cares more about what they eat and the man will literally eat anything, just come up with some suggestions. And again, share the load of cooking or other housework. Have you had any thoughts about dinner tonight? I was thinking X if you haven't got anything that you're set on, and then cooking X because telling your wife to cook a lasagna or something is worse than just expecting her to cook. Being what he says at least 50% of the time would stop it from having the expectation that the woman cooks. And now onto the update, and looking for some more advice. Hi all, I originally posted this last week. I had a serious talk with my husband and have an update. I was hoping you could all continue to give me insights into this matter. Last night, I told my husband, I am assigning you to the pleasure of making dinner. I had been making dinner all week, again, and he replied to this with a loud groan. I said, okay, let's talk about this. He said he wishes I would just ask him to make dinner instead of phrasing it weird or being passive about it. That's fair. However, I countered saying I do just ask him, and if I ask, sometimes he says no or grumbles and gives excuses why he can't. So now I come up with stupid ways of asking like that because I don't know how else to ask. He explained he likes it when I ask him directly or remind him if it's his day to cook because he isn't naturally thinking about it. He says it is easy enough to make dinner when I remind him to and ask nicely. I explained why asking is such a burden that he puts on me, explaining using many of the things you all advised me to say. I'm honestly not sure how much of this sunk in. He buckled down and said he just doesn't think about food as much as I think about it. I said it's because it has been made my thing to think about. I told him if that's the case, it sounds like I'm making us food when he isn't even thinking about it or interested. I'll make my own food from now on. He said that would be okay for breakfast and lunch, but he likes having a home-cooked dinner. I told him, okay, that will be your responsibility now. I've asked you for 10 years to share this responsibility with me, and that never lasts. So I'm done. I'll take over paying the credit card and taking out the trash and recycling, I'll water the plants, and do any other things that you need me to take on so we can still be evenly split domestically. For background, I've asked him several times in the past if we could share this responsibility more. As mentioned in my previous post, we would make a schedule and then somehow fall out of it. He also has always maintained that we share domestic responsibilities evenly. I cook and do dishes, and we have a housekeeper to tidy and clean. His responsibilities are the credit card, trash, watering the plants, and random house projects. It was the most interesting thing. I felt his panic when we entered this part of the conversation. I don't know how to describe it, but I could feel this power dynamic shifted. His immediate reaction was to passionately argue that I would never be okay with him doing these responsibilities because I like to eat dinner earlier than him, and I'm particular with how I make meals. I don't think I am at all, because he doesn't think about food much. He would simply forget to make meals, or the house would be bare of groceries, and he might not notice. I just remained super calm, and I told him that I'll eat whenever and whatever he wants. And I'm surprised he'd forgot to make meals because he's so obsessively good with paying the credit card on time. He loves having basically a perfect credit score, and taking the trash and recycling out to the curb. He said back that remembering those things are different because he doesn't need to remember them every day. He said he does projects around the house, but those things get done when he notices something needs done. It's not something that he has to remember on a daily basis. It was like the most incredible layup ever. I said yes, but cooking is like that. So you can see why it's hard on me. I literally have to plan 3 meals a day for 2 people every effing day of our existence, and I've been doing that for 10 years. I told him I'm starting to resent him over this, and I have a bad relationship with cooking at this point. I could tell he was just reeling in his own mind, with this becoming his new responsibility. He got quiet and just looked so bummed, and he pleaded with me if there was any way that he could get out of this new arrangement. I think this is a point in the conversation when I emotionally flipped from feeling victorious to sad. He could see how this was an unfair burden on me, and he still asked me if he could get out of it. I know everyone on Reddit says this about their trash husbands, but my husband literally is so great. I don't think he is trash at all. He volunteers at Planned Parenthood, is a feminist, and literally teaches about intersectional themes at our university. I've been unemployed, in the hospital, in therapy, and he is always constant. He is woke, but he's a white man with privilege at the same time. I do think he's a good person, but he is blind and sexist when it comes to this. This has always been a horrible tension between us, and for years, I just made dinner and did dishes so I could avoid a conflict. I told him I needed him to take this from me, even if for only a year. I said, "You can do a year, right? I've done 10. He said he could, but then immediately said that he will need my help figuring out how to do a shopping list. I said that was totally understandable, he'd have a learning curve. I could teach him how to do that. Then he started asking me if I could just make the lists for him. I stopped him immediately and said, "No, that's your responsibility now." The conversation petered out from there. I felt an amazing weight lifted off of my shoulders. However, I feel like I already see him just making excuses to get out of certain things, and I felt so disappointed in him that, on some level, he knew that I took on a bigger share of household chores than him, and he just decided to be fine about it and not say anything, and gaslighted me into believing we truly shared domestic responsibilities evenly. That being said, he made dinner last night and says he is making it tonight, and I'm taking the trash out, which feels so much easier. I'm so happy. How do I hold him accountable? Do I need to hold him to the same standards as how I was doing things myself? Or if he asks for help or advice, do I just say, I don't know, that's your problem now? How much help, if any, do I give him without enabling, and how can we have success in this new scenario? And now in the comments, what the heck? How can he just say that he forgets about dinner when he clearly remembers enough to be able to ask you every damn day what is for dinner? That is such a lame excuse. Good for you, honestly. If you want to, you could sit down with him one time and show him how you do a shopping list. But honestly, there are so many resources out there right now. There are even apps that you can download where you put in what you want to eat and it'll produce a shopping list for you. And I've even heard of some that'll suggest other meals based on the ingredients on your list so that you can use the same ingredients for more than one meal. He is totally capable of this. He just doesn't want to do it. I'm sad for you that he recognizes how much responsibility this is, and yet he still tries to put it on you. Shame on him. Oh my god, this. He wasn't not thinking about dinner when he was actively reminding her every night that she needed to make him something to eat. It's not like he's suddenly going to lose his appetite or his memory of wanting dinners on the regular, now that he has to cook. He still has to eat dinner every evening just like OP does. He won't magically stop remembering that they both eat dinner every night just because the onus and the responsibility is now on him to not only remember to eat the dinner, but to prepare for it with planning and shopping and making it as well. What an incredibly weak-ass, insulting effing excuse. I don't think about food. Goddamn right you don't, buddy. You've had no involvement and no effort in making that food magically appear in the past, but you think about food just fine, as long as you're personally not doing anything at all other than eating the food made by someone else? Such a dick thing to admit to her. I hope this goes well for OP. I am so angry on her behalf. And OP says, I will try to clarify this. His mum was a constant cook for their family, but she was terrible at it. I can verify. I've had her food many times. She literally thinks all spices are ethnic and doesn't know how to use them, so her meals are super bland. As a result, I think their entire family came to view food as fuel instead of comfort, if that makes sense. He's a tall, athletic, skinny guy. He will go entire workdays, and by 8 PM when he's getting antsy for dinner, I'll learn that he hasn't fed himself once for the entire day. Maybe he'll have a banana in the morning. He's an Enneagram 3, so he's constantly thinking of and taking care of to-dos throughout his day. He's very achievement-driven. In college, he had an eating disorder. My words, not his. He wouldn't eat sweets, carbs, etc., and worked out so obsessively that I regularly took him to urgent care for his workout injuries, because he needed to lose another percentage of body fat that week. He can get so focused on a goal, he will literally harm himself. Anyway, he seemingly no longer has the problematic issues with his body and eats anything and everything. I know the years we've been together and I've cooked, or we've traveled and had great food, were the first times in his life that he really realized that food could be fun. That being said, it doesn't excuse him just forgetting to eat or using that as an excuse. I told him that knowing he needs to cook for both of us should help him remember, because he needs to not think about himself, but someone else too. He can add it to his to-dos. Huh. Well, the history of disordered eating might explain his sheer panic a bit more. I still think it's primarily just shifting executive burden on you, but maybe that's how he learned to deal with his eating disorder, by shifting the executive burden onto you, especially if you've been together since that time. Now that it's back on him, he has to confront the old demons again. And And that's where I'm going to end this one for today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.